I've joked in the past about wanting to make a lag build, but I was kind of being serious. Rapier, as you know, as I've complained about plenty of times in the past, is a weapon that thrives in reasonable performance. But with that being said, that isn't to say that you can't make Rapier work in influence races or wars. In fact, I'd argue that Rapier is one of the strongest weapons in larger scale PvP due to its utility. But I've also been wanting to experiment with a bunch of different builds for quite a while now, and this is one of them. Warlocks in PvP, or in RPGs, excuse me, have always been super cool to me, and this is kind of my take on one. Damage. AoE, single target, damage over time, we are dishing out tons of it, and there's really no better feeling than hearing this sound during fights. It really never gets old. And while the build is still in its very early stages, I'll probably do a kind of more in-depth build video in the next video once I kind of get the build closer to being finished. It is already feeling pretty disgusting. As you can see, we're running a life ticker on the weapon here, or on as one of our weapons. And as you know, it pairs really well with another ranged weapon because of the fact that it applies that disintegrate. So the build is really designed to just deal damage, and especially to backlines. As you can kind of tell by my positioning here in this OPR clip, my goal with this build is to find my way to the squishy part of the ball and put in as much damage into that part as I can. We've also spec'd a little bit into focus, not too much. We will have about 100 focus, so we have a really nice amount of self-heals as well, just to be able to keep ourselves sustained. But yeah, the build is an absolute terror when you open up on a ball that gets caught by like a gravity well or a bunch of clumps. But it wasn't designed for OPR. As I mentioned, I wanted to make something for influence races, and that is where this really shines. I've always liked the idea of Void Gauntlet and Fire Staff and how they synergize together. Tons of empowers and tons of debuffs, and the empowers from the Void Gauntlet are going to help out our Fire Staff damage even more. And then on top of that, with the ability setup that we're running on Fire Staff, it's literally just AoE damage. The Meteor is going to do a really considerable amount of damage, but also give us a nice constant source of empower, which is going to buff those pillars. But we have a little clip here, and you can see what happens when we find a clump. Our group here gets a really nice gravel onto this purple group here, and we just throw every single spell that we have into that clump there and just start taking people out. Not only is the damage insane from it, but all of the dots that we leave lingering on people as well is just an insane amount of pressure to try to deal with. But after taking out that really big clump here, we're kind of getting jumped on by the scragglers who are trying to jump into the middle of the point here and seize control. But as I mentioned, we have a little bit of points kind of dipped into focus, so as long as we just stay on the move, we can keep ourselves alive. But again, we find just a disgusting clump, and I'm trying to see if I can just put my damage into it here. This looks like we are hitting the bruiser line instead of the healer line, and that's one of the things you really want to try to avoid on this build. As much AoE and just damage in general as you have, you will never be able to kill people if they're just getting healed. And as I mentioned, that's really the goal of this build, is to try and find that backline and target those healers. But this fight currently on this point is just insane, and everybody is kind of brawling in the middle, so we're just kind of throwing all of our spells, as I mentioned, into that clump and trying to cause as much damage as possible. And yeah, as you can see, you really can't clump up and get caught. It really goes without saying in PvP in general, but we can just punish people so much more for that happening on this kind of setup. I'm also running the Nimble Cult with a bunch of refreshing pieces so that we can have all of our spells up as often as possible. But as long as we keep our distance and we aren't actively getting jumped on by an assassin or something, we can just continually pump the damage into these backlines and continue to be a nuisance. But we once again kind of semi-clear the points here. All three factions are in the middle of this point, kind of brawling it out, and it's a pretty insane fight. But we're doing a pretty good job of staying alive so far. As long as we kind of dip and dodge into a sacred here and there, we'll definitely be okay to stay alive. But as you can see by the kill feed, we're literally just running around raining death on people. Anytime that we see anybody clumped up, we throw down the entire arsenal, as well as that cannon blast, the brutal cannon blast that has the AoE. We take out, I think, 2 or 3 people there at the same time with that usage. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite ultimates so far to pair with the build. But I think I kind of want to try Firestorm to see how that feels as well. Cannon Blast is really nice because of the fact that it is a really considerable amount of initial damage. But the thing that I'm kind of not liking about it is the fact that it can get body blocked by somebody. So if somebody's in the way or not close to the clump and I hit them, then it doesn't really hit everybody, whereas Firestorm will kind of just go through everybody that I aim it at. But again, you see we find another clump on the point here, and our group does just a really good job of constantly staying on the move and then converging on these clumps when we see them. But a really nice fight at Everfall, and then we're going to take a look at another clip here, also during another Everfall race, but a little bit later, where we're again kind of just all brawling on the point, where we have our entire group on here, and it looks like all 3 factions are kind of battling it out again. Try to see if I can get up to the top of the point here and start raining down some death from above. And I see a really big clump here, and I even try to throw my cannon blast into it, but you can see how many sacreds are on the ground there. So we're definitely not going to be able to make any leeway into that clump. But we do turn back around and try to see if we can get something done again. As I mentioned, you do want to try and flank these types of situations, but with both green and purple fighting in there, and most of my group being behind me currently, we're in a really bad situation to try and flank around this group. But I'm trying to see what I can do. We do get a couple of downs there, get a couple of pickups with the cannon blast and the continual AoE damage, but the greens have started to push through, and we need to start to get our butt out of here so we get a burnout just making it out of there. That's one of the things I really like about this build as well. We have that mobility from the fire staff, so as long as you are aware and you don't get stagger locked by too many people, you can most of the time kind of stay on the move and causing a havoc. But again, you see we rotate, find the meteor shower onto this clump again, get another couple of knockdowns. We're going to rotate back around to the right side with our group. I'm kind of following the calls in Discord here, so if it looks like I'm in a really good position, we end up moving, because you see, just like here, we find a really nice gravel on this group again. We throw down the meteor shower, we throw down the pillars into the cannon blast, find a bunch of kills again. I see a low health target here, and I kind of just jump out to finish him off when we find the scream on him there. But it is honestly not that different from kind of the rapier playstyle I do in OPR, which is kind of trying to skim the outside and sides of the fights and look for that squishier backline to kill. And you can see what I mean there with that great sword player on us. As long as you don't let them kind of stagger lock you or stun lock you in a pretty nasty combo, you can for the most part get away, as long as you can find a sacred and heal yourself with your void gauntlet. But greens and purples are literally just making our job too easy here. They're just constantly clumping up, and there is quite a bit more sacreds that have shown up here again. And like I said, I really want to rotate here, but our group is getting kind of assaulted from all sides here, so it's really hard for us to kind of regroup and find an angle for us to push. But even more purples have arrived. We're just constantly throwing in the damage. You can see how much damage we're trying to do here onto this clump. We find a moment there where the healers aren't healing the main clump, and we get a bunch of kills right there. Our team starts to push in a little bit into the point, but again, I don't want to overextend too hard. But with that gravity well, we get a really nice clump of damage onto that group again. That's really the thing I'm looking for. I'm waiting for our front line in Discord to kind of call out when they're going for these big CC combos. And because of those lower cooldowns, I can constantly just be harassing people. And you can see all of the skulls just popping up on the map here. And then our kill feed kind of just ringing up with people. It is just so much damage. We have pretty much a 100% uptime on Empower for the most part. We have Oblivion. Our meteor shower is going to be giving us Empower. We have the Rune of Helios as well. So it's too much damage to just kind of sit there and take for free, which is kind of the idea that I was going for with the build. Yeah, it's very, very fun, but it isn't quite yet complete. I'm gonna kind of put it together and try to get the last couple of perks here, and I'll get a build video out for you guys, excuse me. But as always, thank you all so much for watching the video, and have an amazing day.